Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Shai, Brakathia Howell, Brakathia Howell, Bashin Shai, Bahashim Rachakudash, the belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which you well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim, Tezadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. I'm the priest Shaman. This week's topic, I'm going to be speaking on the LA riots. Right now, you have the Latin tribes protesting out there in Los Angeles about the deportation. Somewhere, is it? It's LA. I think it's LA. Should have confirmed, but I know it's California for sure. We all know it's California, but it should be the LA riots. But they're throwing shit at cop cars. Now, there's two ways to look at this, organic and synthetic. Organic mean like there's actually people protesting, and for what I'm hearing is that they're actually doing it peacefully. But you also have agent provocateurs, all right, that will go into the midst of these riots and protests, all right, and do shit like throw shit at the cops and, to try to, what they want is they want the people who's there generally protesting in solidarity and quietness or whatever to get in an uproar. Now, Gavin Newsom is funded by George Soros, and we know that George Soros funded Black Lives Matters, right? The BLM movement, which was notorious in 2020, all right, for staging a lot of riots and looting. I know that for a fact. This is not a conspiracy. I know it for a fact because at the time where I was working at, we had to barricade a lot of things. And out there in the Bronx and Fordham, the news portrayed it like it was Jake burning shit down in protest for George Floyd, but really there was a lot of people visiting from places like, I saw Virginia Place, all these different places from different states just coming there to loot. We don't know how much of them was paid, how much of them was trying to get up to get a lick, but guess what? The media was portraying it like, oh, the people are pissed off. So I wouldn't even be surprised if there's people over there in LA like, yo, stop throwing shit, stop trying to disrupt shit. But they were sent there for a purpose, to disrupt shit that the media could portray a particular narrative. Now, this is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. It says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. And you'll see Jake's Israelite camps, they'll kind of fall into that trap, that simplicity. What do I mean by that? They'll start to go on marches. Marching and, we need rights, and marching and shit like that. Well, you just fell into a snare because that's not what we meant here to do, right? We're not here to try to take Esau down on any physical or carnal level. That goes against Romans the 13th chapter, which tells us to obey the higher power. So we don't get in the mix up of any of that stuff. All right, we don't get up into the mix up of any of that shit. Brothers, we don't go in front of the riots like the other camps might do or try to seize the opportunity of the riots to push the word. Nah, we just go out there and teach, man. All right, we don't want to get mixed up in that, man. Because like I said, Antifa, Black Lives Matters, hell, even in the fucking Middle East, moderate rebels, it's all the same psyop shit that they do. Okay, they could take organic protests, put synthetic actors, and paint a narrative for the media. Next thing you know, if you out there, they could lump you up with that shit. We got a hate group, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like Ephesians 5 and 16 says, Ephesians 5 and 16 says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, right? Around spec. Look, you're looking around, checking shit out. Now, granted, our people have been oppressed, and we know that this land does belong, all right, originally to the Israelites, Native Americans, so-called the tribe of Gad. You got Issachar, so-called Mexicans in different parts, all right. The so-called white man stole from us, but it's not up to us to try to take it back. First of all, our real homeland is the land of Israel, but the Lord will give us retribution. But the scripture says what? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So the Lord is going to take vengeance out on this devil. This so-called white man know what he did, because guess what? You even have so-called white men amongst that protest. But the scriptures tells us that the children shall complain of an ungodly father, roughly paraphrasing. You know what I'm saying? So you have Edomites in the midst of those protests, all right? And then guess what? They could be FBI agents, or they could just be Edomites that believe that what they doing deporting Jake ain't right. Now technically, since the so-called white man took this land and he owns it right now, you don't want to be here illegally. They don't give a fuck if you work in a regular honest paying job or none of that. You're just gonna get yourself hemmed up. You see what I'm saying? Because which one is the crime according to Esau's laws? It's not sending somebody back to their country that's here illegally. That's not a breaking the so-called white man laws. Breaking the so-called white man's laws is being here illegally. And then really a lot of this shit too is crazy because Biden administration inundated America and the borders and all that with just mad immigrants. This shit is just a response to that, you know. But mind you, it's not even a Democrat-Republican thing because Barack Obama, he deported way more people than Trump. But again, this is the power of the news, the power of the media, whatever narrative they want you to believe. The main difference between Barack Obama and Trump is this: Barack Obama deported people at the border, all right? Trump is deporting people that's in the United States. And of course, they go back and forth, these left-wing, right-wing people. The media is very anti-Trump, man. But what can they put up to, you know, demonize this guy a bit? Well, see, he's deporting people illegally and shit, and ICE and yada yada, so they run it with that shit. It says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. So it's a foolish thing to try to jump into a debate, even though the message of that, it's a foolish thing to jump in the midst of those riots, even though what those protesters are saying is valid in terms of this land was built. First of all, this land was owned by Jake, built up by Jake, and is still being built by Jake. You know what I'm saying? But they calling themselves Latinos, Negroes, or what have you, but it's all Israelites. You see? Revelation chapter 3 verse 18 says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich. Right, so that gold tried in the fire is talking about Israelite man, namely an Israelite man of the Lord. Okay, so when we read Sirach, the 2nd chapter, you know, tried through adversity, purified through adversity, because how you purify gold? Through fire. The fire represents the trials, the afflictions, and things that come with this truth. So, acceptable man is tried in the furnace of adversity. Sirach 2:5. It says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold, and by the way, this is Yahushua speaking, gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed. Right, righteousness. Scriptures tell you put on righteousness like a robe. All right, so that white raiment is the pure doctrine. All right, righteous is the faith in Yahushua. Okay, just like how you have a bride, when the bride is ready, they put on the white gown to represent the purity. Even though none of these women nowadays is pure, but that's what it's supposed to represent. We're supposed to put on the same thing, you know what I mean? Which is the white robe. The right garments represents the proper doctrine. You know, the scriptures speak about having on strange apparel in the book of Zephaniah. You don't want to have on no strange apparel. The Lord coming back and you talking about some Jesus, or you talking about some other shit that the scriptures ain't about. The Lord ain't gonna be dealing with you. It says, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. Right, so which represents sin. Nakedness represents sin. Okay, so if you're doing righteous things, if you're doing the works of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, you won't be found doing sin. You know? It says that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve. Now, anointing your eyes with eye salve, all right, is an oil. Okay, but this represents how the owls are able to see through. Owls are able to see at night. Like They're nocturnal creatures. But what allows them to see at night and see in the dark is they have this oil behind their eyes. And an owl is one of the, like, the second highest. Well, it's up there. It's up there in terms of animals that's equated with wisdom, high level of wisdom. All right. The dragon or the serpent is like number one. Just below that, you have that owl who's able to see through the dark. So when we see shit on the media, you know, we understand that there's many different psyops, all right? And you have to filter everything, even the conspiracies, okay? Even the conspiracies. You don't want to just believe every conspiracy just because it's a conspiracy. You know what I'm saying? You have to really have that eye salve on and filter shit. How do we do that? Go back to the scriptures, okay? Because that's why I'm saying this thing could also be organic, because the scriptures also tell us that he's going to set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. All right. So can't rule either or out. You know, you could speak as a man, but, you know, both could be in play. You know, both can be in play. Like, these devils could really be trying to paint the media to go against this dude and fight for power. Because that's sort of how shit always is with before every city, before every kingdom falls, they're divided. And that's what Yahweh Shai said. He said, every kingdom divided against itself shall not stand. America's no different. It's Rome all over again. Right before Rome fell, you had a bunch of Caesars killing each other. Just before the Persian Empire fell, you had a bunch of kings killing each other. Syrians, same thing. Okay? So these devils, all right, they're going at each other. And there's nothing new under the sun. You know? It says, white raiment that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eye with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Right? So that's how we're anointed, and we look at things through a biblical lens. We go back to the scriptures, all right? Because this man deals with high-level witchcraft, high-level deception, you know? Proverbs 14 and 15 says, the simple believe every word, but the prudent man looketh well into his going. So we have to do what you call due diligence. You know what I'm saying? Gotta, you know, have to do what you call due diligence. So when you see in images of people throwing big ass boulders at ICE vehicles, you gotta say, what do they want out of this? You see what I'm saying? They're trying to stir people up, rouse people up and shit, you know? Do you want to fall into that? Of course not. You know? So we here at Great Millstone, we telling you, don't start no riots, don't be a part of no riots. Okay? A lot of that shit is agent provocateurs, all right? CIA funded and shit like that. George Soros funded, trying to get something out of you. Proverbs 27 and 12 says, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. Right? You know, look what happened with that January 16th thing. Remember when they said they stormed the Capitol? The media made it look like these people was ripping shit and destroying the Capitol, and really, come to find out, it was just a bunch of FBI agents setting shit up for the optics. And even though people didn't do shit, you had certain people that didn't do anything, all right? They were there so-called peacefully protesting at Capitol Hill. Well, they had to go in jail for 4 years, and they had to wait till Trump got back in for presidential pardons. So sometimes you could go around those things and not even do shit, but now they have a reason to lock you up or pin something on you. You see? So I would say just avoid those things. But let's see where it goes. You know? It's exciting times, man. And we know that at some point there will be organic uproars against the government, because that's in the book of 2 Corinthians, the 15th chapter. Whether this is that, very skeptical, you know, very skeptical for valid reasons. But at the end of the day, prophecies are moving forward, man. All right. So with that, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shah, Hashem Chakadash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the whole field elect out there, you Akim to Sadakim, that do this thing now most truth and sincerity. Shalom.